Hello everyone and welcome to the Go Setups VIP Trophy Challenge. And unfortunately your usual host Terry Farish is unwell today, so you're stuck with me. Very well, I will be your host for this evening. And well, we are in for a little bit of chaos here tonight, as it looks like our qualifying session, which is just getting underway, is going to start out pretty wet and dry up over the next 18 minutes. So going to be very, very interesting. And let's see who we got just starting out on a flying lap. Is the car 669, that of Slavik Klinger, who will be starting us off. And I mean, it's almost slightly disappointing that the qualifying groups aren't the other way around, as it will be more favourable conditions for the faster drivers later on in this session. But alas, still going to be opportunities out there for those currently out on track to get their best time in. It's going to be who can find the clear track coming towards the end of this 9-minute stint. As we head down towards the hairpin. It's going to be a real challenge of which drivers can get up to pace, get the understanding of the track conditions. This is quite a short qualifying period, with the qualifying being split in two as it is. And we've got a good number of drivers out there at the moment, drying this track out, and conditions will be changing lap on lap, especially once that rain, which looking especially heavy now, is going to die down, as we're going to see the first representative time being set not too long into the future, as Klinger approaches the somewhat treacherous chicane. We've got a few yellow flags out there, as I think some drivers maybe just pushing a little bit early, trying to find pace when caution may be the better approach to these opening couple of laps, as Klinger takes a 205.5 but is quickly displaced by a Latz getting a 202.3, and Ben Lopard with a 202.0, a driver who's usually reasonably quick, but could lose out here due to the conditions changing throughout the session. So going to be some drivers who would be expecting a bit better going to be dropping down the order, I think. As Ike Choos starting his first flying lap in the Audi, a car which is twitchy in the best of conditions, and if well, things haven't changed much over the intervening period of when I last drove this car, one that doesn't have the best electronics for handling the wet conditions, so Choos with his work cut out for him this evening. Still a number of drivers out on track who have yet to set a flying lap, and the first of those will be Marco Lorenzo, who's just coming through the Schumacher S. And just stepping over track limits at the top of the curve. Thankfully, with the track drying out now, track conditions looking to be damp, so these early laps going to become slightly irrelevant as the session rides on, but still an advantage to have a banker on the timing tower. So it'll be a Rodera who will be the next to try and slot themselves in to standings in the top half of the pack at the moment. Just the final corner left to navigate. Where will they slot themselves in the standings? Up to P9 with 203.5 as Lemon slots in to P9 just ahead. And looking through the order, Nige Woodcut with one corner to go, sticking with the Aston Martin that we've seen him running for numerous seasons now. He cuts the beam for a 204.2. A solid lap and still plenty of time to find a bit more pace. Another 3 minutes or so for this qualifying split before we see our white badge drivers head out onto the track. It's up to our drivers to try and find a little bit more pace out there, as Rodera currently sitting on a 203.5, some 2.5 seconds off the ultimate pace being set by Ben Lopard, is finding a good handful of time, as is Jerome Lemon up ahead. And the Ferrari, a car we know that does have the electronics on board to handle these tricky wet conditions. A little bit of traffic for Lemon up ahead. We'll be able to benefit from a little bit of a slipstream down to the line, though not the longest of runs to the line at this circuit. And Lemon jumping up to P2 with a 201.825, still about 9/10 off of that top time, that fastest time set by Ben Lopard so far. Although I think we are seeing across the board drivers up and down the field finding time. As Jakob, a little bit of a slipstream coming down towards the hairpin. Actually, not the part of the circuit I thought he was on, and not that beneficial part of the circuit to be in the slipstream. But you can see now, rain completely stopped now, and that track will start to dry out. We have got 45 drivers in our field, and about 20 of them out on circuit right now. So there are enough tyres going over this racing surface to start to dry it out. And Jakob caught up in that slipstream now, and I think losing out a little bit of time throughout this lap. Would have preferred a cleaner lap, as yellow flags out for Steve Goosens, who was on an improving lap, but will not benefit from that now. Well, the commentator's curse, I didn't even have to say anything, only had to go over and take a look at that, and it sees him careering off of the racing circuit. So will not be benefiting from that improving lap he was on, as Choose getting a distant tow from the McLaren ahead. And this will now be the final laps for these red and silver badge drivers. Shoes crosses the line. P5. They shall remain. As Razvan Logigan looking to improve decently here. Goes up to P6. Finds a decent amount of time. And I would expect now all of these drivers currently heading out on track to be positioning themselves well ahead of the field who have already set the times. Ben Lopard will be happy to see that no one has improved above his 2:0.9. Was really looking like he could be under threat from the drivers who stayed out and continued to lap. As it doesn't look like our championship leader is present for tonight's race. So we will check in with our P2 driver in the championship, Ben Averod. Just leaving the pit lane. Leaving the pit lane a little late, 1.5 minutes into his qualifying stint. Does need to be careful not to get in the way of some drivers who will already be starting the first of their flying laps. As Sergi Sebastian, all alone on the circuit actually, has managed to get himself into a nice clean bit of air. As it looks like it will be Busso back in his Bentley who will be setting the flying lap from the white badge drivers. And those track conditions are looking so much more comfortable. Almost no spray at all being kicked up, and I'm sure we're going to be getting into the greasy and maybe even starting to get into the green track conditions before the end of this session, which will see those lap times tumble. So just the chicane to navigate now. Always a jarring view going on board with the Bentley. Not expecting to be on this side of the car as a passenger. As we come down to the start finish line. So I imagine getting his pressures slightly wrong there, pulling off the racing line, returning to the pit lane. And Sergi Sebastian on a flying lap. We'll begin to see a couple of drivers finish off their first flying laps. Kenny Crows now with a 2:01.8. Reese Tattersall getting himself up into P2 at the moment, a 2:0.762. And still plenty of time to find some more pace. The Boda crossing the line to take P21, a 2:02.9. Although this track drying out, still needs to I'm going to take these drivers a couple of laps just to get a feel for the conditions and to get some temperature into those tyres. Is potential strategy to set your tyre pressures for what you expect the conditions to be like at the end of the session. So some of these drivers may be running on tyres slightly flatter than they would like to be on. As Sergi Sebastian slams his way through the chicane. Going hard on his opening lap. And where is this good enough to put the man in the Mario Kart livery? P8 for now. Continues start onto his second lap of the session. So unlike a few drivers who we've seen return to the pit lane, Sebastian comfortable that he's got the right setup on that car for the conditions. As Reese Tattersall now improving heavily on this lap. Got the distant tow from the McLaren of, I think that's the McLaren Suzuki just up ahead. He winds his way through the chicane and into the final corner. Foot to the floor, a wiggle out of the final corner will cost him a little bit on the exit. The first of our drivers to get into the 1 minute 59s. It's a 1 minute 59.830 for Rhys Tattersall. A solid second attempt as Felix Kotick in a stained glass livery by the looks of things, getting that tow from the Nissan ahead, puts in a time of a 2:0.347 to take P2 away from Busso, who is back out on circuit and lapping well at the moment. Further down the order, we've still got a few drivers who have yet to set their first valid flying lap, as Turret Fredriksson crossing the line and taking P2 away from Felix Kotick. Now's going to be the time where we start to see those lap times drop. Track conditions coming towards these drivers now, as Sergi Sebastian crossing the line for his second flying lap, and that is a 2:0.175, still some 3.5 tenths off of that time set by Rhys Tattersall. That's all going well here at the Nurburgring GP Circuit, as still Chris Simcrip's right, going up to the final hairpin now. Yet to put a time on the board, so this is going to be important for Chris. Only going to have one attempt at a lap after this, and thankfully this one is valid, and that is good enough to put him in P11 for now. Now on to his final flying lap of the session. Few drivers actually still sitting down in the danger zone without a lap on the board. Those are Roland Stricker, Daniel Moore, Ben Averod, Matthias Peltzer and Sam McCarthy. Averod, though, coming up to the final corner now with still just over a minute remaining on the board, will get to set his first flying lap, and it's an okay lap from Averod. We would expect better from the driver who currently is sitting in P2 in the championship, so he's going to have one more attempt to improve on that lap time. As now is when we're starting to see those lap times tumbling. And next across the line will be Fredriksson, who's found a considerable amount of time on that lap to set a 1:59.567. I think while we weren't paying attention, Rhys Tattersall has now got a 1:58.6. Almost a whole second clear of the rest of the field. And Sergi Sebastian with a massive snap coming out of the final corner. Didn't look like he was going to be close to challenging Tattersall anyway, but that snap will put paid to any further improvement. But P2 for now, but plenty of drivers behind, finding more and more time. As it does look like Sam McCarthy is going to get one and only one lap in this session. And it's good enough to put the Porsche driver up into P10. So a clutch lap there from McCarthy, as Chris Wright crosses the line to take P8. A good improvement on his final run in the session. Alexander Frank taking P3 as Rhys Tattersall cements himself in P1 with a 1:58.2. As left, Busso in the Bentley, snatching P2. As Ben Averod now taking P2. It is all change at the top, as now Johan Leff taking P2. And next across the line will be Roland Stricker. Another driver finding plenty of time slots himself into P5. The lap times are coming in thick and fast now as Felix Kotick takes P5 off of Roland Schricker. It's going to be a whole cascade of drivers coming through the start-finish line now as Fredriksson takes P4, to be followed by Scholl, remains P18. Vibek crossing the line to take P13. Daniel Moore with a big improvement moves up into P3, and the final driver to cross the line will be Kevin Mulder taking P11 on tonight's grid. So, we'll be back very shortly for the race, and we have got a interesting front of the field. As anyone who is familiar with the Porsche Cup races will find the first couple of positions very similar, as we've got Reese Tattersall alongside Johan Leff on the front row of the grid. So some things translate over quite well, and it's going to be an interesting run down to the first corner. And I hope that these drivers can keep things nice and clean at the start of this race. Nurburgring, definitely a track that can catch drivers out, so let's all keep our fingers and toes crossed for a nice safe T1. As it looks like the weather has improved for this race. Will be a 1 hour race for you all this evening, with a single mandatory pit stop. No refueling allowed, but a mandatory tyre change will mean there's a decent opportunity for mixed up strategy decisions. Drivers looking to get themselves into clean air or to extend and have that nice fresh set of rubber at the end of the race. Plenty of options available to our drivers, so that is going to be something to look out for. I will keep you up to date on the pitting strategies of our field, as we are just short moments away from our drivers taking away onto the formation lap for this race. And reminder to you all, we do have 45 drivers on our grid today. It is a packed grid as the drivers start their engines. We have got Reese Tattersall in the BMW on pole position. Tattersall, a driver not unfamiliar with a front row start, and driver who is currently sitting in P13 in the championship, having missed the first round out in Suzuka. He will be starting alongside Johan Leff in the Porsche. Leff currently sitting down in P16, also having missed the first round in Suzuka. In P3 we have got Daniel Moore, right livery that we will keep an eye out for, very hard to miss. And then our P2 driver in the championship, Ben Averod, is currently starting in P4 on the second row of the grid. Has got a little bit of space to make up if he wants to, well, I was going to say if he wants to take the lead of the championship, but I think it's going to be quite easy for him to take the lead of the championship after this race, being as our P1 driver, Jentel van Thuylen, not present tonight. In P5, we've got Fredriksson, currently P10 in the championship. And in P6 is Busso. Behind him is Felix Kotick. And starting alongside Kotick on the grid will be Roland Schricker. Up the fifth row on the grid is Svoboda and Sergi Sebastian in that very distinctive Mario Kart liveried AMG. P11 is Kevin Mulder in the Iron Brew liveried car. The only Nissan we have on the grid tonight. Good to see that car being used in a competitive setting. And in P12 is Alexander Frank, the first of our Ferraris on the grid, surprisingly. In P13 is Karol Petrovsky, with Balazs Fahit in the BWT Audi starting alongside. Manuel Antrax is in P15 with Tadeusz Zazinski in P16. Chris Simcrip's Wright is in the Ferrari in P17 and will be starting alongside long-time rival Sam McCarthy in P18. Behind them will be Rainer Scholl and Ben Lopard. Lopard managed to hold on to P20 despite the vastly improved track conditions for the rest of the field. In P21 is Matthias Peltzer and 22 is Florent de Moore. We have got Kenny Kroes, Samuel Rudera, Nitro, Paul Cook, Jerome Lehmann, Ike Chews, Razvan Logigan in P29, Latz, King, Woodcut, Tweedy, Jakob, and we've got Gregor Michalak, Shirzak, Lorenzon, Gutierrez, Goosens in that familiar police car livery, Milner, Klinger, Cano, Kaiser, Weidbeck starting the bits, and we are racing at the Nurburgring. Such a long grid, didn't realise we'd actually got round the final corner as Reese Tatzel holding on alongside Johan Leff into the first corner. As at least the front of our field have all made it nice and safely through the first corner, and it is Daniel Moore who's having a look around the outside of Leff with Ben Lopard hovering around on the inside as well, as they're side by side coming through the first sector and exiting the arena section, as Ben Averod getting himself up into P3 early doors in this race. Good starting run from the Lamborghini driver, as looking up and down the field as well, Sergi Sebastian up 2 positions into P8 and Alexander Frank up 3 positions into P9. We have got a green track at the moment, so yet to get properly rubbered in. Does mean our drivers are going to have to be slightly careful as they come around these first few laps, get the track rubbered in, and don't want to be missing their braking points. As we've got 2 cars side by side in the background, looks like that is Felix Kotick trying to make his way past Balazs Fahit, as Kotick into P10 in this race, as Averod and Moore going side by side. The run down towards the chicane. Busso also getting involved in this one as they come 3 in formation through the chicane, as Daniel Moore off the circuit onto the grass has to yield the inside line to the Lamborghini of Ben Averod as they come out of the final corner side by side, door to door, as they run down towards the first corner. Daniel Moore just nudging a note ahead, but it will be Ben Averod with the inside line coming into the hairpin and through the arena section. Got to imagine they're going to say side by side through here. The inside advantage going to Moore, but Ben Averod just about able to sneak ahead. If he can hang on around here, will have the inside for the corner exiting the arena and should be able to keep himself ahead as he does. And very familiar to what we saw last lap, Ben Averod just keeping himself ahead of Daniel Moore. This battle is keeping Busso, Fredriksson and Schricker, Sebastian and Frank, all 8 of these drivers in very close proximity here at the front of the field. We head down again through into the second sector With the second. Tight hairpins on this circuit down towards the Schumacher S. Van Avermaet holding on. And looking out into the background, looks like we did have one of the drivers dip a wheel out onto the dirt as Busso having a look on Daniel Moore. Nothing to be done this time around, but does give a little bit of breathing room to the Avermaet up ahead, now at almost a second gap. As we have this battle going on towards the front, there is another battle brewing over P12 as Manuel Antrax leads Mulder, Svoboda, Szynski, Lopard, Wright, Scholl and Peltzer. So a number of close battles in this field as Svoboda right up close behind Kevin Mulder. It's the battle over P13 in this race. They come down towards first corner. It's Tadej Szynski who's looking up the inside of Svoboda. As they round through this winding first sector, Kevin Mulder just getting himself a little bit of a gap back to Svoboda, who's under real pressure from Szynski. As we have even more battling further down the field, as we'll take this early race opportunity to have a look at some of the battles that are brewing, as we've got Nitro, Demore, Logigan, King, Cook and Tweedy all duking it out. This over P20 in the race as Florent Demore getting up the inside of Nitro, keeping side by side as they run down towards the second hairpin. As Logigan also having a glance as Florent Demore aggressive up the inside. They make door-to-door contact. The stewards will be taking a look at that one, but both still keeping themselves pointing in the right direction. No loss of time there for either driver, and this is close, aggressive racing in this entire pack of drivers. As Cook having a look to the outside of King, as looks like Tom Tweedy getting a little bit of oversteer there, getting himself out onto the grass as Paul Cook, a very solid move to the inside, a little bit too solid if you want my opinion, as King out onto the gravel and facing the wrong way now. Will need to drive himself down that re-entry road there and get himself back into the race. But all this battling has actually brought even more cars into this contention on this race over P20, as all cars from P20 down to 29 now within less than a second of each other. As we've got side-by-side battling up at the front of our field. Busso and Fredriksson going side by side as Roland Stricker looking to the inside of Fredriksson. Will turn to the outside for the next corner. Can he roll the speed through? Nope. And in having to compromise his run through the corner has allowed Sergi Sebastian to come on the offensive. As Sebastian trying to roll the speed, trying to take that outside line. Will turn to the inside for the hairpin. Good racing there between the two of them. Roland Stricker trying to hold on, just trying to roll that speed through the corner, as Alexander Frank now right on the back of him. With these cars all so close together down in this racing pack, any small mistake from any one of these drivers could see them losing multiple positions just for a minor mistake. So everyone needs to be on their absolute best form here, as Moore continuing to lead ahead of Busso GT. I say lead, I do mean run in P4, as Rhys Tattersall, Johan Lev and Ben Avermaet some way ahead of this battle for P4. As we've got battling further down between Kevin Mulder and Tadej Szynski. And look at that Nissan go. You can start door to door with a Nissan on the exit of a corner, but you're not going to stay door to door by the end of the straight. As Kevin Mulder taking a little bit of a shortcut through the chicane there. Can get away with that once or twice, but not too often. As Busso and Daniel Moore continuing to battle. And Busso looking like he's going to try and take the inside line here into the first corner and has got himself fully ahead on the exit. Is Daniel Moore going to try and come back at him around the outside? Would be bold to try and hold on around there. Too many left turning corners to really make that outside line work for you. And Busso now up into P4 as these cars all snake their way through the arena. To remind you, this battle is Busso, Moore, Fredrickson, Sebastian, Schricker, Frank and Kotick. That is Kotick in the stained glass looking livery you see in the background. As the battle over P2 still going on. Ben Averod, having got clear of Moore as he so desperately needed to do at the start of this race, has been able to chase down Johan Leff. Averod looking a lot more comfortable with race fuel on board than he was in qualifying trim. Now really applying pressure to the back of Johan Leff. Dropping down onto that long back straight. Averod well in the slipstream. And looking like Averod just falling a little bit on the longer straights. Whether it being a car or a setup advantage going the way of the left, but it is enabling him to hold on to P2 for now. As we've got Moore dropping back. What has happened to Moore? Oh, big old bump over the chicane. And, well, that sees Moore losing a handful of positions. Does well to rejoin the circuit safely on the outside and somehow actually not dropping off the back of that pack entirely. That is impressive car control from Daniel Moore. Those cars were incredibly close together. And to be able to slot himself back into that battle, down some 5 positions, but crucially still within sight of his old position of P5. Now Ben Averod is as close as he's been for a while to the back of Johan Leff. Not at a section of circuit where you can really overtake, but just keeping himself in close. Really needs to make sure he can optimize that exit onto that back straight. That is going to be his best opportunity. Needs to keep Leff under pressure as Reese Tattersall has extended that race lead to 2.2 seconds now. With the battling going on behind. Got to imagine Leff is losing just a little bit of pace from watching his mirrors, as looking like Ben Averod with a very good exit from the corner. And still looking like Leff able to pull that gap regardless of how close Averod is on the exit. That Porsche pulling away better out of the corner than the Lamborghini of Averod. I think that was Reese Tattersall kicking up a little bit of dirt up ahead. That gap dropping by a couple of tenths of a second, but nothing to really be bothering Reese Tattersall. As we've got yellow flags out for Svoboda, who's now facing the wrong direction and straddling the pit entry. Oh, what has happened to Svoboda? Oh, just a big old snap of oversteer, as it looks like, well, similar problem for Ben Lopard though. And I think Ben Lopard taking the opportunity to dive into the pit lane, I think. Nope. Lopard exiting the pit lane again, so not diving in to serve that one. Just taking an evasive action. And that is a good question we have in chat. What has happened to Sam McCarthy? He is in the pit lane at the moment, just serving a stop, but it looks like he entered that only recently. So the number 117 car, do we have an incident on the board? I don't see one. Nothing except from something very early on in the race, so unfortunately, nope, can't bring you any more information on that one. as our big battles are beginning to break apart somewhat now. We're getting a few little duels going on up and down our circuit. First of those is this one on your screen right now between Johan Leff and Ben Averod. We then have Roland Stricker chasing down Sergi Sebastian. And Alexander Frank and Felix Kotick. And behind them you can just see the likes of Balazs Fahir and Manuel Antrax. Antrax having a glance to the inside there, but nothing doing of it. As Kevin Mulder makes the dive into the pit lane, opting to get the car of Chris Wright out of his mirrors, perhaps feeling like he was being slowed down by having to keep an eye on those cars behind him. And now Chris Wright will take position at the head of that train, as Matthias Peltzer having a look on the inside of the corner. This could end up costing Peltzer, having to brake heavily to avoid the back of Rainer Scholl. That has allowed Ben Lopar to sweep it around the outside. Good race reading there by Ben Lopar to move himself up into P15. And okay, well, if we think it might be the case that Sam McCarthy had an early incident, let's have a look. Could this be what we were referring to coming down? Oh, and yeah, nudge from Ben Lopard is what ended up turning Sam McCarthy around. So that does explain why Sam McCarthy now finds himself down in P45 off the back of this field, but has served his mandatory pit stop. Johan Leff continuing to hold on ahead of Ben Averod, as Felix Kotick has just made his way past Alexander Frank. So let's jump in, get a live replay of that one. Oh, well, in the end, actually, Alexander Frank going a bit too deep and gifting the position to Felix Kotick, who now finds himself up in P8. Solid drive as Ben Lopard taking the inside line at the first corner and has made his way past Johan Leff to take P2 in this race. And that gap forward to Reese Tattersall now at 2.7 seconds. So two questions we have to ask now. Firstly, does Ben Averod have the pace to start driving away from Johan Leff? As Leff getting on the blinkers a little bit there, so I wonder if he's got something to be unhappy about. And we'll take a look and see what happened for that overtake. Move up the inside, and in the end nothing too untoward there, unless there was something into the final corners. But Ben Averod now running in P2 and is bringing that gap down ever so slowly to Reese Tattersall. So back to my earlier point, the second question we have to ask is, can Ben Averod catch Reese Tattersall? And looked like another little mistake there from Tattersall, just seeing off camera a little bit of dirt being kicked up. 2.4 seconds the gap now. So we will have to wait and see how that moves over the course of the race. But here's a battle. Lonergan, Demore, Crows side by side coming into the top section of the circuit, as we've got a penalty coming out for the car number 40. That is Paul Cook. Car currently running in P27. Has now Florent Demore has got Kenny Crows and Tom Tweedy within a tenth of a second of him as they bomb their way through the chicane. There's actually Kenny Crows now who's under pressure from Tom Tweedy, who can get the better run out of the final corner. And Tweedy well in that slipstream. With a good long run towards the first corner. Tweedy having the glance up the inside. Don't think he's anywhere close enough to really be thinking about a lunge. But getting himself in the mirrors of the car ahead. Just letting Crows know he's there. Maybe try and put him off of taking that apex. As we're starting to see some drivers now as we approach into 40 minutes remaining in this race. A number of drivers serving their mandatory pit stop. Mind you, those drivers who have served their pit stops are Weidbeck, Goosens, Moore, Latz, Mulder, Zvoboda, Lorenzon and McCarthy. So we'll have to keep an eye on those drivers later on into our race. As Balazs Fahey, he's a driver used to having a car close up behind him, but usually it's quite a lot more cars. It's a very short train for Balazs Fahey here tonight. As we come through the chicane again, Dajs catching up to the back of this pack, and Manuel Antrax taking the opportunity to dive into the pit lane. As Balazs Fahey and Dajs head on to the 11th lap of this race, and Szynski catching up quite rapidly onto the back of that Audi of Fahey. As they come out of the arena section, Szynski with a great run on the exit of the corner opts to go to the outside. Should be able to carry more speed on the exit, but Balazs Fahey defending well, not giving to Dajs the opportunity to go to that inside line. And good battling up and down our field here tonight. Plenty of close battles. And to highlight that, we have got Jerome Lemon making the move on the Audi of Ike Hughes, moving himself up into P24 as Paul Cook, driver currently carrying a 15-second penalty, just to try and also make his way past Twos, as Twos running very deep into the hairpin, and Cook now up into P25 as Twos doesn't seem particularly happy about that. Also on the blinkers again. And now it's the turn of Karol Piotrowski as Ike Hughes getting a snap of oversteer. As Tobias points out in chat, we can now see on our radar rain coming in the next 30 minutes. So that will impact probably the last 10 minutes of this race. So going to be interesting to see how many of our drivers notice that, as well, Tadeusz Szynski perhaps making a poorly timed entry into the pit lane. Does stop in his box, so will be changing his tyres. And now we wait and see how many of these drivers now try and hold on until the rain. Looking like it's only going to be a light downpour, so it will be the drivers who have already pitted who will be praying and hoping that this rain is short and light. Otherwise, they could see their early pit stops ruining their chance of any meaningful result in this race. As down in P30, Klinger and Weidbeck. I think Weidbeck just making his way past Slavek Klinger. trying to make his way forward in this race. As Nitro has got Logigan and Crows for company. All of these drivers in the top 28 of the race, not having served their mandatory pit stop yet. First of our drivers having served a pit stop is well, the driver we were watching just a moment ago, Robert Weidbeck, who was stopped in the pit lane for 1 minute and 24 seconds, so can only imagine had a considerable amount of damage to repair, and that was what caused him to take that early pit stop. As Nitro with Logigan and Crows for very, very close company. Crows looking like he's getting the better run out of that final corner. Well in the slipstream, and we'll be looking to the inside. As well, we asked the question, would Averod be able to close down that gap to Rhys Tattersall? And I think the answer to that question is a resounding yes, as that gap now sitting at around a second. Rhys Tattersall ahead of Ben Averod, and that BMW is looking awful slippery out there, as our track conditions, which is too optimal, but track well and truly rubbered in now. Ready for that rubber to all be washed away when the rainstorm does start. But Ben Averod over the past few laps has really been closing that lap down. We compare the previous lap times from these two front running drivers. Previous lap from Rhys Tattersall was a 1:55.885, from Ben Averod a 1:55.285. As they both now cross the line, and well, Averod almost matching his previous lap time there, with Tattersall some 0.4 of a second off Averod's pace. Averod is closing that gap in. As we look further down the field, in P19, Jakob holding on in front of Rodera and Scherzak. As Rodera looking up the inside, confident on the brakes, as Jakob tries to hold it around the outside, but that is Rodera up into P19. Solid work on the brakes there. And now that gap closed right down at the front of our field. 0.2 seconds separate Rhys Tattersall and Ben Averod. And now we get to see where Johan Leff was able to open up that gap on this straight lap after lap. Will Rhys Tattersall be able to do the same on Ben Averod? Still got 33 minutes remaining in this race. It is an awful long time. Try and hold on to that P1. And Ben Averod really showing like he's got the pace at this point in the race. And yellow flags out for Alexander Frank. Looks like a moment into the chicane for the Ferrari driver. Oh, a little bit of the front first curb, a little bit too much of the second curb, and that has sent Frank round. And it's now seen him drop down into P13, losing positions to Fahir, Wright, Scholl and Lopard. As we now come on to second sector of the circuit, Ben Averod got his sights cleanly on the back of that BMW of Reese Tattersall. Reese Tattersall not looking especially comfortable. Drifting slightly wide of the apex. Again, as we come through the Schumacher S, it's just leaving a little bit of track, a little bit of pace on the table. And see, will Ben Averod be looking to punish that? Especially as they're coming to meet some back marker traffic up ahead. Ben Averod close behind here as we head into the chicane. Looking well controlled through the chicane. Reese Tattersall already taking the defensive inside line. Will this present an opportunity to Averod now? As they come onto the start-finish straight. And Ben Averod got himself under that rear wing of the BMW of Reese Tattersall as they head down into the first corner. A little bit of dicing for position. There's Reese Tattersall opts to defend the inside line. Ben Averod going to have to go the long way around through the arena section. Can he keep his car alongside Reese Tattersall, leaving just enough space as Averod tries to hang it around the outside? Not quite enough pace to do so at the moment, which allows Reese Tattersall to take that final inside line through the exit of the arena section and to keep himself ahead crucially. But you can see now they are beginning to approach that back marker traffic just a couple of seconds up the road. Those cars ahead. Trying to work out what cars those are up ahead. Looks like the car number 92 is in amongst that. There's some way down the field. As, oh, that looks like that's the car of Tom Tweedy as Reese Tattersall has to take evasive action there. And good job from Tom Tweedy there, holding his brakes and keeping the car stationary. We come down towards the chicane again. And Ben Averod again attacking through the final corner. Not quite as close as he was into the first corner this time around. Reese Tattersall able to take a more conventional racing line. But Ben Averod opening that corner up as much as humanly possible. And now this is the point where Reese Tattersall is going to be hoping and praying that those back markers just get out of his way. He is a man on a mission and does not want to be held up 1 ounce by those cars battling ahead. And yeah, he will be nervous to see that those back markers ahead, those of I think that is Radera and Lorenzon up ahead, they are battling for position, separated by just half a second. Both having taken their mandatory pit stops, will be blue flagged, but not going to want to disrupt their own race as well. As Reese Tattersall now going to be suffering from a little bit of dirty air off the back of that McLaren. Will benefit from a slipstream down this long back straight. This will help his defence against Ben Averod. But as much as this helps him, as soon as they approach the chicane, that help will turn to hindrance unless these two cars move out of his way. And, well, it is a brave, bold move from Reese Tattersall from two cars that didn't look like they wanted to give up their fight. Somehow slotting himself in between the two of them as Ben Averod also dives his way up the inside. And these two navigating the traffic well. Blue flags are waving for Marco Lorenzon as he just slightly backs out of the throttle, allows Rhys Tattersall to go through, as also allowing Ben Averod to come through. And so far, our race leaders navigating the traffic without too much hassle. And that moving their way through the back markers has given Rhys Tattersall a little bit of breathing room over Ben Averod, and means we have a little bit of an opportunity to check in with some of the battles elsewhere on the track, as Rainer Scholl defending from Ben Lopard and Alexander Frank. That's the battle for P9 in the race. And the driver who, well, we have to assume is in net P3 in the race, Johan Leff, currently running down in P20, getting his way past Ike Hughes. But we can't turn our attention away from this battle for the lead for too long, as Ben Averod has closed that gap back up again. Now sitting at just 0.2 seconds behind Rhys Tattersall. And I think these drivers are just going to extend this stint out. Potentially slightly nervous about that rain that's being forecast. Still not falling into our 10-minute window at the moment, so we know we will have at least 15, or at least the next 10 minutes of this race being dry. At most 15 minutes of wet weather. Though looking at when it did change over, expecting about 10 minutes of rain towards the end of this race, so the impact it has is going to fully depend on how heavy that rain ends up being. Ben Averod really sticking well to the back of that BMW. That gap has not moved much over 0.3 seconds for a whole lap. As they come through the Schumacher S. Rhys Tattersall looking like he's attacking the track just a little more than he was earlier in the stint. As well, it looks like our rain shower is going to be extremely brief, as it has completely disappeared from our radar. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, just means that it will probably last only a few minutes. As Ben Averod just getting into the mirrors of Rhys Tattersall, not completely following in his slipstream, trying to make himself seen. And this is the opportunity here for Averod to get that better run out of the final corner. Seeing that Lamborghini not benefiting so much from sitting in the slipstream. Not able to close that gap up down the start-finish straight, but Ben Averod getting creative with his lines, just trying to keep close in behind Rhys Tattersall and try and coax a mistake out of the driver ahead of him. But Rhys Tattersall, used to this kind of pressure, used to leading races, isn't going to buckle easily. We'll touch wood on my desk, as we do know the commentator's curse is strong here at Pitskill. And still this battle for the lead continues, as Rainer Scholl, the most recent of our drivers, to head into the pit lane. Essentially seeing that that rain shower is going to be brief and getting the confidence that he can weather the storm. interesting to see what the rest of the drivers on the grid decide to do about their pit strategy now. 20 minutes remaining in this race. And those tyres will be starting to go away from those drivers who have yet to pit. As neither of our front runners opting to peel into the pit lane just yet. As we have got side-by-side battling between Florent D'Amour and Nitro. D'Amour to the inside line at the hairpin, takes the position away from Nitro, and looking like Logigan trying to do the same. As they come towards the Schumacher S, Nitro holding onto that position ahead of Logigan, who, whoa, has to take evasive action not to go into the back of Nitro. This becoming a real old battle, being led by D'Amour, including Nitro, Logigan, Jakob Lemon, and Johan Leff, picking his way through this pack of drivers as well. This will be impeding his progression through the pack and maybe be hurting his chances to take that final podium position, as Busso had been able to run in clean air for quite some time, or at least when he has been encountering other cars, they have been waved the blue flag and have allowed the Bentley driver through, but no such luxury for Johan Leff, having pitted when he did. Has to make these moves legitimately and is well in the slipstream of Jakob ahead. And into the braking zone for the first corner. And running amongst these cars also does come with its own risk. You have to be confident that you can make the move, and also trusting that the cars around you will afford you the space, will realise that you are a faster driver who isn't necessarily in their race. As Lemon and Jakob going side by side, Paul Cook getting involved in this one as well. Paul Cook still yet to pit and serve that 15-second penalty that is going to be coming his way when he pulls into his pit box. So plenty of battling going on in this midfield here. And a number of drivers who made their pit stop early on, making their way through as well. We will check in with their progress later on. But yet again, it is great action here from Ben Averod and Rhys Tattersall, as Tattersall leaving the minimum allowable space. And is that Rhys Tattersall with an indicator on there I saw? Or was that just his brake lights? I think he's just threshold braking. I thought he was taunting Averod with his indicators, but apparently not. But Averod looking like he's having to try and get creative to find a way through. Tried to go all the way around the outside at the first corner. Not going to be all that much of an opportunity there, I don't think. But he's showing that he's willing to try different things. And with these two so close together on track, always a potential as well for this one just to be settled in the pit lane. We'll hope it isn't, but with just 0.4 seconds between them, a slight slip on a pit entry or stopping in the box could change the complexion of this battle quite considerably. As they come back through the chicane. Ben Averod taking a little bit more curb than he would have liked. We got a car stopped on the inside of the hairpin. That was Michalak. And what on earth happened with Michalak? Number 22 car. That was very peculiar. Going into the pit lane. Oh. Just a bit too hot into the pit lane. Oh dear. Well, that explains that one then. As this battle for the lead continues. And to check in with the progress of Johan Leff, has now cleared the pack he was in and is now sitting in P14, some 1.5 seconds away from Loggigan. So it'll be interesting to see whether his stint on fresher tyres has helped him claw his way forward. As these two now catching up to Sam McCarthy, who had to take that early pit stop after his incident early on in the race. Should be an accommodating driver when it comes to the blue flags. Especially as McCarthy not in any close battles at the moment. But that gap, just enough to give Reece Tattersall a slipstream, but will become a problem as they come down into the first corner, and Sam McCarthy getting well out of the way. Looks like it caught Reece Tattersall somewhat by surprise, as Ben Averod did manage to close up that gap, but both safely through and can continue this battle over the lead of the race, as Johan Leff clearing Loggigan for P12 on track. Johan left with a just over a minute gap to our race leader, as that's the Lamborghini of, actually, who is that? Not sure which car that is actually. But getting well out of the way anyway, whoever that was. I think that's Kessa, who's just getting out of the way of the leader. So well done to Kessa. As we've got a 5-second penalty coming out for the 1 to 8 car. And that is Rodera. But so far, seeming like Ben Averod content to sit in behind Reece Tattersall and await a mistake at this point in the race. Just staying in that slipstream. Will, I imagine, take any opportunity that comes his way, but not trying to force anything here, not trying to dive. Ooh, well, I said that, he did have a glance to the inside as Reece Tattersall making defensive shapes and forcing Ben Averod to use the entire limit of the track there. Reece Tattersall, a driver who doesn't mind getting his elbows out, will race fair, but will use every single little bit of the track that he is legally allowed to do so. And Ben Averod being forced out onto the marbles, and that meant he couldn't get the best possible run out of the corner. If Ben Averod wants this position, he is going to have to do something decisive. Reece Tattersall isn't just going to yield to him. Again, Reece Tattersall driving a defensive line. Does slow his way through the corner, but with himself, with being positioned in the lead as he is, and these two comfortably clear of Busso in P3, they can afford to slow each other down a little bit. Reece Tattersall just wants to make sure that he maintains that P1 position, as Ben Averod just getting onto the outside, compromising the line of Tattersall, is now well in the slipstream as they come down the long back straight. It's been closer than he has been on any of the subsequent laps, but still not close enough for the slipstream to pull him alongside down that straight. As Reece Tattersall takes to the pit lane, this is going to be the opportunity that Ben Averod has been waiting for. It is going to be in-lap versus out-lap, these two drivers. As Busso has been overtaken by Fredriksson. I'm not quite sure when that happened. We will jump back and see if we can find the moment. Oh, coming through the chicane. Bold stuff there from Fredriksson. Taking the inside line through the chicane. Well held onto, and has got himself up into what will be a net P3 once all the pit stops play out. Well, I assume anyway. Right? Although we don't really know the progress of Johan Leff at the moment. Leff still the leader of those drivers who have pitted, as Michelat finds himself off circuit again. Quite an awkward part of the circuit to attempt to rejoin at. We'll go the long way around the grass. As that rainstorm that was predicted has now started with 10 minutes of the race remaining. And this will be interesting as Reese Tattersall will be now emerging onto the circuit on tyres which aren't yet up to temperature. So we'll keep an eye on the sector times being set by Reese Tattersall. As it's going to take longer for his tyres to come up to temperature. But then again, fresher rubber means it can build that temperature quicker versus the old and worn tyres of Ben Averod. Ben Averod, who himself now does dive into the pit lane. As we have battling between Balazs Feher and Alexander Frank. So now Averod, Fredriksson, Busso and Sebastian all in the pit lane, as we've got yellow flags out for Matthias Peltzer off the circuit. There's Reese Tattersall, who we will keep an eye on, who is clearly struggling a little bit out there as the rain continues to fall. The track now greasy, but rain predicted to last for the next 10 minutes, so actually could last until the end of this race. As Tattersall rounding the final corner now. Ben Averod still stopped and has just started moving in the pit lane again. So as Reese Tattersall comes down towards the end of the pit lane, and that is Ben Averod ahead. Ben Averod has taken the lead of this race, and by some margin. Reese Tattersall really struggling on that outlap. And just that one lap difference in when these two drivers stopped has given Ben Averod a 3.6 seconds lead over Reese Tattersall. And we don't know what tyres both of these drivers have opted to run for this final stint of the race. We do know, however, that this rain is seemingly going to last until the end of the race, and with the track greasy, that is usually the track condition where the slick and the wet seem to be of similar performance. We won't say identical, but similar enough that there is arguments to be had either way of which tyre to run. But now the track is damp, and this will be coming to the favour of anyone who opted to put on the wet tyre. So some of those drivers who stayed out a little bit longer saw the track conditions change, may now be on the wet tyre. And if that is the case, we're going to have to see if these drivers on the wet tyre can start to move themselves forward, as Balazs Feher finally diving off into the pit lane, as Busso and Fredriksson fighting again. Busso, I imagine, going to have a bit more confidence in that boat of a Bentley. Car which is going to be somewhat more stable in these conditions, being front-engined and well, substantially heavier, but well planted on the track, whereas the Lamborghini a little bit more of a capricious car. Also have Sergi Sebastian on the back of Johan Leff. Leff, remember, a driver who pitted very early on in this race, would have definitely have gone to the dry tyres. And now I think Sergi Sebastian on those wet tyres has a real pace advantage. We can see Johan Leff just trying to carry a little bit more speed than his car is confident in carrying. And Sergi Sebastian up into P5. And this race actually not going the way of Reece Tattersall at all, who now has Busso closing that gap up. Last lap around, Busso was 1/100th of a second faster than Reece Tattersall, although that lap was including an overtake on Fredriksson. So Busso looking like he's got the pace and is rapidly closing in on Reece Tattersall. And wow, that gap has come down by about half a second in the last sector between Busso and Tattersall as they exit the final corner. I have to say, looks like it's only going to be a matter of time before both Busso and Fredriksson make their way past that ailing BMW. Tattersall in pitting one lap earlier, I think, just went onto the wrong tyres. And Busso clearly with so much more pace in the car. Tattersall going very, very defensive. And I think Busso might even have the grip to just go around the outside and just driving through Reece Tattersall. And a valiant attempt by Tattersall to try and hold on, but it looks like he will lose out. Both P3 and P4 dropping down to P5 in this race. And with Sergi Sebastian charging on as well. Maybe more positions yet to lose for Reece Tattersall after what was looking like a promising race for the BMW driver. Just getting caught out by the late shower. As Fredriksson continuing to battle with Busso. But the back marker there just putting paid to Fredriksson's attempt to try and get by. As a battle resumes between the two of them, that gap between Tattersall and Sebastian now at 2.5 seconds. Gap dropping by about a second over the past sector. Sebastian on a real charge at the moment. There's another driver on a charge. Is the driver who currently holds the fastest lap of the race, Felix Kotick. That fastest lap being a 54.620. Some 0.4 of a second faster than our race leader has even managed during this race. So real solid stuff there from Felix Kotick, who is now heavily attacking Daniel Moore. As they come down the start-finish straight. Is Kotick close enough to have a look? Doesn't look like he is. Not just at the moment. As coming around the final corner are Mulder and Frank. Well, as we switch over, battle already complete as Mulder, who pitted early on in this race, doesn't have the right tyres on at the moment on this damp circuit. And that is Alexander Frank up into P13. There does seem to be plenty going on in the background. My timing tower is going absolutely bonkers at the moment. Can't decide where certain drivers are, whether they're yellow flagged or not. So slightly confusing. But up towards the front, and Rhys Tattersall, who had spent so much of this race leading, is now being slowly caught by P5 driver Sergi Sebastian. As Ben Averod just coming around the final corner now to start what will be the final lap of this round 3 of the Go Setups VIP Trophy Challenge. There's going to be one lap for Rhys Tattersall to try and hold on in front of Sergi Sebastian. And Rhys Tattersall clearly with no grip on those dry weather tyres. As Balazs Fahir's made his way past Manuel Antrax for P11 in this race. Close battle between Fahir, Antrax and Frank currently going on. There's this battle for P4 we're going to keep our eye on for now, as Rhys Tattersall looking to lose, unfortunately, another position, defending hard. Knows he only needs to hold on for one more lap. As Sergi Sebastian looking to the inside. It's been a phenomenal defence by Tattersall so far, making that BMW as wide as he possibly can. Gets a little bit of a snap of oversteer out the top of the Schumacher S, and it looks like this is battle over. Sergi Sebastian getting that better run out of Schumacher S's. Yep, that is the 115 car there, who's clearly having connection issues, phasing in and out of existence. But as we come around the final corner now, we have to say congratulations to Ben Averod, who read the race supremely, hitting onto the right tyres at the right point of the race and taking the win here at Nurburgring GP Circuit. He will be followed by Busso taking P2 and Fredriksson taking P3. Well fought race in the end by Sergi Sebastian to finish 6 places higher up than his grid position to take P4. Rhys Tattersall, unfortunately, having to settle for P5 after his early pit stop led to him going onto the wrong tyres. Johan Leff managed to hold on to P6 after his stint on what must have been quite warm dry tyres at the end. Roland Stricker coming home P7 with Daniel Moore in P8, and Felix Kotick, well fought, P9. I was getting confused with what car that was, but it looks like it's 2 cars merged together. That's why it looks very unfamiliar to me. Josiah Szynski, P10 with Balazs Fahir. In P11, Alexander Frank finishing the race P12, with Antrax P13, Lopard P14, and in the end Kevin Mulder in that final lap dropping back a number of positions into P15 and run those last few laps on the wet tyres, dry tyres, as he did. Renner Scholl finished the race in P16 and Kenny Crows in P17. Tyus Peltzer finished P18 with Sam McCarthy in P19. Laurent de Moore finished P20. Marco Lorenzo on P21 with Jakob in P22. Trotsky P23. Jozak in P24. And, well, that is our session over. Well, thank you very much for watching, everyone. That was one hell of a race. And, well, a race that really didn't need spicing up by the rain at the end there. But we won't complain. It certainly added a little bit of flavour to the last 10 minutes. And a solid battle throughout between Ben Averod and Reese Tattersall. The victory eventually going to Ben Averod in what was a well-fought race. And congratulations to the remaining drivers on our podium who read those conditions so well, as Busso and Fredrickson. And it remains to say, get well soon to our usual VIP trophy commentator and broadcaster, and the founder of Pit Crew and Pitskill.io, Terry Farish. If you're still in the chat, hope you do get well soon, and hope to be watching you again next week. I believe Alex will be broadcasting the Weekend Warrior over on the Pitskill.io YouTube and Twitch channels this Saturday. And we'll be returning on this channel next Monday for a race you will not want to miss, when the Porsche Cup and BMW M2 multi-class takes to the mountain of Bathurst, where I think the back marker traffic is going to annoy a lot of Porsche Cup drivers. Until then, I will leave you with the highlights from tonight's race, and wish you all a very lovely rest of your day. Until next time, I've been your host, Roy Weller. Have a very lovely day. Goodbye.